Let's now move to East London, and of course this is the horrific story. And it is, of course, the suspect accused of killing University of Fort Hare student has the suspect Ayesha Ismail abandoned his bail application. The matter was postponed in the East London Magistrate's Court, and of course we understand he allegedly killed his girlfriend Nosicelo Mtebeni before dismembering her body, discarding it in a suitcase. An absolutely horrific story. Ayesha Ismail's been in East London. She joins us now. Ayesha, this is just another utterly heartbreaking, appalling story. You were in court today. Did you see the accused? Do you know more about why he abandoned his bail bid?
Well, Sally, earlier today, as you say, Ayesha Ismail made a brief court appearance, and I must say, he's quite a big man. He's a hefty man, very well built, and people were saying that he was a former bouncer. He was also somebody who sold funeral policies. And when the magistrate read out his rights and said to him that should you want to apply for bail, you have the right to get a lawyer, he then shook his head, indicating that he did not intend applying for a lawyer, or rather applying for bail at this stage. Now, I did also speak to the National Prosecuting Authority spokesperson, who said that Ismail had made a confession and detailed in this confession how he had killed his girlfriend after finding out that she was having an affair. So let's take a listen to hear what the NPA spokesperson had to say about this confession.
He said that he noticed that she was acting differently, because usually she would allow him to have access to her cell phone. Now all of a sudden she had pins to the cell phone, and she didn't want him to have access to the cell phone. So from the 16th, that's when the argument started. And after a night of them, this is what he says, the night of drinking, then she fell asleep, and then he took her cell phone and tried to open it and guessed a lot of combinations on pins until he finally succeeded. And then he says that his suspicions were confirmed when he saw a photograph of this lover, of her alleged lover, and also love messages from him as well.
Ayesha, you know, it is just a truly awful story. So, as you say, it seems that the boyfriend of Nosicelo Mtebeni has confessed, abandoned bail. Ayesha Ismail, what more do we know about him? Were there family members in court today? Is he well known? Were people surprised that he might have done this? What more can you tell us about him?
Well, very little is known about him, and I certainly didn't see or get to know that any of his family members were present in court today. But what I can tell you is that the victim, the deceased, Nosicelo Mtebeni, was a final year law student, and her fellow students were telling me how her wish, her desire, was to join the jurists in the Constitutional Court. And her parents were not in court today. They did not attend the court proceedings. Instead, they were at the mortuary identifying her body. And they were looking forward to her graduation, as she was a final year law student. And now they are here to prepare for her burial.
It's utterly heartbreaking. And you know, tomorrow, the 24th of August, marks 2 years since Uyinene Mrwetyana was murdered in Cape Town. And that caused a national outcry. And, you know, 2 years on, another woman struck down in her prime. One wonders how much has changed for women in that time, particularly the national outcry 2 years ago, the horror, the campaigns, and yet here we are still.
But Sally, it seems that the killing is just not stopping. Remember, last week I covered the story of a 93-year-old woman who was raped, sodomized and murdered by a young man who lived in her home. Days later, a 20-year-old woman from Brown's Farm in Philippi was also raped and murdered by her boyfriend. He also chopped up her body. And now, of course, we have the case of Nosicelo it just seems not to end. And especially the fact that it's Women's Month, it's August, we're supposed to be celebrating women. Instead, we are burying women.
Very quickly, what is the next step in this court case?
So the matter has now been postponed to the 28th of September, and this has been postponed for further investigation. You must remember that the accused has only now been arraigned. Today he made his first appearance. They also now need to get the DNA analysed and also some other statements from witnesses. And then, of course, there's probably going to be, the case will probably then be postponed to the High Court. And what we do know so far is that on Wednesday at the University of Fort Hare, it will be a shutdown for the day. The 25th of August has been declared a day of mourning at the university, and a full program has been prepared. And then, of course, after that, it will be the preparations for the burial.
Thank you very much, Ayesha Ismail, coming to us live from East London.